Hey, Zoom listeners, Love is Blind, Season 3. Let's watch.
How was the little conversation with Cole at the pool party?
Okay, just a little observation. Matt is asking Colleen, how did the conversation go with Cole? But you hear the tone, you hear that word little. Whenever you hear that word, it's usually some sort of hostility, not always, obviously, but how did that little conversation go? Or if you're asking someone, so how did that little job go that you were working on, or whatever? How was that little concern that you were thinking about yesterday that was so important, that kind of thing. So it's interesting because I didn't know if they just edited it this way. It kind of looked that way, but maybe not. Colleen and Cole were talking and having a good time at the pool, and they would intersperse these edits with him, sunglasses, like staring at maybe them with a scowl on his face. And I thought, like, well, they probably just took like a couple seconds of him scowling and just inserted it there, but maybe not. And that I suspected that because he didn't seem like he had this in him, but it looks like he does. And okay, so jealousy is a thing, insecurity is a thing. We all are prone to it. How do we deal with it is the key. Let's see how the two of them deal with this.
All I said was you're a cute guy, and in the real world, sure.
So this seems like it's not the beginning of the conversation. This seems like it's mid-conversation, like they already had a fight and the cameras weren't there, and so now the cameras are there. So the other thing is the wine is not in that gold goblet, which makes me wonder if this wasn't intended to be shot for video, but I don't know. So she says, all I said, again, the tone of her voice, it sounds like she's already said this, is that, look, you're a cute guy, and in another world, yeah, sure, I would have dated you or something like that. Now, hopefully, Colleen can follow this up with, but, that doesn't mean anything about how I feel about you or how attractive you are to me. Also, if you're Matt, hopefully you could say something like, well, I don't know you that well, and I desperately don't want to lose you, and when I saw that happening, it triggered me. And I think he's had infidelity in his past, if I remember right. He did talk about how he would put up walls because he was with someone for 10 years, I believe. Maybe that was ending in infidelity. I don't know. But he could say something like that, like, I got triggered and it was hard to watch. So one, could you please not do that in the future, particularly with Cole? I mean, certainly you can talk to whoever you want to, but the way it looked like the two of you were flirting with each other, and I know that he likes you, and I know that you wanted to be with him before you wanted to be with me, and he dumped you, and there's talk that maybe Cole doesn't really want to be with Zay, and so it just really threw me for a loop. And so one, could you not do that in the future, or just take that into account when you think about my triggers? And also, I could use a little bit of reassurance right now that you do still want to be with me. So he could say something like that. He could also say something like, this isn't on you. I trust you. I don't have any reason to distrust you, but I get jealous sometimes, and I'm having a moment, and it's going to be hard for me to be normal tonight. I'm sorry about that. There's a lot of things you could say. Let's see what he does.
How was the little conversation with Cole at the pool party?
All I said was you're a cute guy, and in the real world, sure.
What's the real world?
In the real world, if, I don't have, with Cole, I don't even know who that person is. With you, I know who you are.
Yeah.
Okay, not a bad question for him to ask. What's the real world? Are you saying that if we leave here, then you're going to start dating him? Because that's the real world? What do you mean by that? And, yeah. This is interesting because this is the premise of the show, right? That there are connections made in the pods, and then you throw them together at the honeymoon phase, and they're going to experience each other and say, like, oh, maybe we should have been together. So, we're seeing it in action. And it makes sense that Colleen and Cole would both have feelings for each other, because they did have feelings for each other in the pods, particularly Colleen for Cole. It's going to happen. So let's see how they manage. Doesn't mean that Colleen doesn't love Matt or that Colleen and Matt are a bad couple. This is teetering on the edge, though, for Matt. I could see him going in a very dysfunctional direction, possibly even abusive. He has that kind of, I'm worried about that. Or he could get differentiated, or she could reassure him, or I don't know. Let's see how he does.
If, like, I don't have, like, with Cole, like, I don't even know who that person is. With you, I know who you are.
Yeah, but you didn't tell him that, though, right?
I did.
Well, that's interesting. So he's saying we didn't tell him that, meaning I think I wanted you to tell Cole to back off or to establish that you're with me or something, which sounds like he is concerned with what's in Cole's mind, which you'll find people will have. So if I was to take a guess, I would say that his attachment worries are with Colleen. He's having attachment worries, which would make sense. Anyone, especially after just a few days of seeing each other in person for the first time, and especially that Colleen was dumped by Cole and Brennan. So they're trying to reestablish a new narrative that they've talked about before, but makes sense that you would have some insecurity about that. The feelings are okay. How do you deal with it? But it also sounds like he has an additional worry, which is humiliation and competition with Cole, that he wants Cole to not get his way or something. That kind of sounds like that.
Have, like, with Cole, like, I don't even know who that person is. With you, I know who you are.
Yeah, but you didn't tell him that, though, right?
I did.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see how this goes, but at least the style right now is that he is punishing her. He wants her to suffer. He wants her to feel ashamed of herself, guilty. He wants her to feel maybe stupid or something, or slutty. I don't know. But this is what we do in couples. It's a common thing. It's borderlining on an abusive, right? Low, mild abuse, I would say. It's not good, but if we can, we should try not to do this, and so let's see how he does.
I've been played before, all right? I get it.
We didn't have a moment by any means.
I'm good, bro.
We didn't.
I'm good.
Right, so I think he's referring to having been cheated on in the past. And yeah, so let's talk about that for a second. Infidelity can be massively traumatic, and it's not something that we talk about enough in our culture. A lot of people, when they are cheated on, say you were cheated on by the love of your life, long-term relationship, marriage, whatever, and you break up with the person, or you end up breaking up and you go to your friends and you're like, hey, we broke up, she was cheating on me for a while, and you'll find a lot of people will just be like, wow, that sucks, and what a B word, and well, now you know, so time to get out there and meet more women. And, it could be helpful, but I think there's an underappreciation of the potential lifelong trauma that cheating can have on individuals who are victimized by it. Because there's a lot of things that are a mind screw about that, especially, if the circumstances were such that the victim is like, so wait a second, if we go back in time, that time when we had sex, or that time when you said you loved me, earlier that day or around that time, you were in love with, or you were having sex with, or you were saying similar things, like, so wait, what? And the entire narrative just gets completely upended. As an analogy, when I saw Fight Club, the movie, which I loved when I was in my 20s, I related to it a lot in some odd ways. But at the end, when we learn, spoiler alert, well, there's a twist. And when we learned that, and I did not see it coming. And when I learned it, and I was in the theater, I literally felt vertigo. I felt like, I was like, wait, what? Because I was so into the movie and watching these two characters, and all of a sudden the twist happens, and I felt like, I felt like I was going to pass out or fall over. I was like, oh, the physical nature of the revelation of, wait, my world is completely upside down right now. That's what it's like, potentially, when you learn that you were cheated on. Your entire world was this, and then all of a sudden, nope, it's this. Complete opposite, really. I thought this person loved me. I thought this person was telling me the truth. I thought I could trust this person. I thought I was a good gauge of someone's trustworthiness. I thought that we were at least kind of in a good space, and no, we were not. And we were not only for a day, but possibly for months, if not years. I was being completely tricked by the circumstance for years. Who am I? What am I? Do I know how to gauge reality? It could be a gaslighting experience, right? And the pain, right? Just the hurt of, why didn't you just break up with me? That would have hurt, but would have been better than that. And it can stick with you the rest of your life. And every time that you fall in love, and every time that your partner gets a text, or every time your partner is out doing something, or every time you hear a hint, or, it's the trauma is there. And of course, there's therapy and corrective experiences and emotional regulation and reassurance and blah, blah, blah that you can do to heal, of course, but sometimes these things don't go away. It's sort of like when you are sexually abused as a child. Like, you can do a lot of healing and therapy, but it never just goes away, right? It's a part of you. It's a part of your neurology now. And that can happen when you're older as well. So for him, I'm just going to take a guess and say that he's not 90% down the road of healing. I don't know how long ago it was. It couldn't have been that long ago because he's not that old. I think he was with her for 10 years, if I'm knowing the details right. And he is, I don't know, maybe he has done some healing, but I'm just going to take a guess, given the way that he talks, that he hasn't done a ton of healing around it. And he could be really suffering. And so when Colleen and Cole, which is kind of like this perfect scenario, all the details about it, that it would trigger Matt, right? And he would feel like it's happening again, and especially the extent of time, right? It's one thing if you just heard of Colleen, you're just like, someone comes up, did you know Colleen and Cole were kind of having a thing? It's a moment of time of a surge of distress, whereas the way it looked, he's staring at the two of them in swimwear, laughing and talking to each other and seemingly having chemistry or something. I mean, or you can just interpret it as two friends having a conversation, which is the way I looked at it. But if you're him, you're going to have more concern. So the distress is sustained over time. You're just staring at it, and the negative emotions are building, and your adrenaline and distress hormones are going off, and it's prolonged, right? I've experienced this with clients who have experienced, it's one thing to just learn about the infidelity, like the other person contacts you and says, by the way, your husband's cheating on you with me, or something like that. That's pretty rough. But I had a client once that actually the cheating partner butt dialed her husband, and the husband picks up the phone thinking it's his wife, and then suddenly is going, what? And then because he didn't know what else to do, he just proceeded to listen to the entire event, which lasted like over an hour or something. Just imagine what would happen to your body listening to your partner. It would have a particular effect on your brain and your soul and your spirit. Now, Matt didn't have that much time that he was watching it, but a little bit of time, right? More so than if he just heard about it. Anyway, so he gets triggered. He said he has a tendency to put up walls. This is, I think, what's happening. He might be convincing himself he's made a terrible mistake. It's happening again. She doesn't really love me. What have I got myself into? This is humiliating. 'Cause that's another part of infidelity. If you've been cheated on, it can really feel, there's all the attachment disruption and the pain and the hurt and the confusion, but there's an additional element often, which is it's humiliating. Because we all have been there, right? Particularly as children, when we're left out on the playground. There's kids that are like, we don't want to play with you, or whatever. There's just always these experiences that we have, these little traumas that we have, sometimes bigger than others, where people are conspiring against us, or they don't want to include us or something. And it doesn't get any more poignant along those lines than when your loved one, your partner, is obviously conspiring against you over the span of a long period of time in very elaborate ways with someone else, right? And often you find out as the victim that your partner, the person cheating on you, had been telling their friends. And so people you hung out with friends of your partners or family members of your partners knew about the infidelity. Sometimes maybe even your friends knew and didn't want to tell you or whatever. And so, just that humiliation level, just like you want to crawl into a hole, right, and never come out. So he puts up these walls, and he is, I think, trying to communicate. So one way to look at this is that he is being hostile and mean, which, is the surface level. Another possibility is that he's praying that Colleen will see through it and overcome the wall and prove herself to him. We've seen this in other reality shows. Think about Natalie and Josh. Natalie will get really big and really angry, and I think part of her wants to be angry and hostile, but I think another part of her is like, Josh, please prove that you love me, even though I'm triggered and even though I'm getting angry at you. Another version of that is this passive-aggressive silent treatment, punishment. The hope is, it's sort of like when you see Key and Peele, Megan, and I can't remember the boyfriend's name, but, Megan's walking away and the boyfriend's like, Megan, come on. And then he stops, and then Megan's like, wait, are you not chasing me? And then he's like, Megan. And, anyway, you get my point, is that some people will run away from you wanting you to chase them. It's not a functional way of bidding for security, but people do that. So let's see how they handle it. I feel bad for Colleen, though, because I feel like she's being overpunished.
So much respect for you, and I didn't know what to say during that
It's
conversation.
very easy to shut it down. It takes 2 words. That's my man. 3 words.
I
That's my
did.
man. No, you're attracted to me?
did.
Cool. I'm glad. That's my man.
Okay. There's other ways to say it. There's worse ways to say it. There's better ways to say it. I wish you would slow down. There's another way to say this, right? Of like, well, given my role play earlier about taking responsibility and not punishing and, talking about benefit of the doubt, you can make a request and say something like, well, I would have wished you would have said this. That would have made me feel better. Not this version, which is barking at someone. And I'm also noticing with Colleen, she doesn't seem to be really saying the things that I would hope someone in her position would say if she really wants to soothe him. It makes me wonder if there is some truth to this, that there is something, but some sort of feeling, which again, like I've been saying, would make sense. Or if, like she was saying in the pods, she doesn't like in-depth, deep, vulnerable conversations. She just doesn't know what to say because she's not used to it. She's just trying to get out of it. I imagine that's also true as well, which doesn't help in this situation, because it would really help if she could say something like, look, I love you. I feel attacked by you. I don't want to be with him. I was talking to him. I feel really bad. Because I'm guessing if she said something along those lines, it would help. But she keeps kind of arguing about the details. But bottom line, he needs to take a walk around the block and calm down, because his tone isn't going to help.
None of the f***ing girls told me I was attractive and they were attracted to me and they wanted to be with me. And if they
No, he
did, I
told-
would have shut it down and said, I got my eyes on one girl. I don't give a fuck what you think about me. I got my eyes on one girl.
Yeah. Can I take a minute?
Obviously, the tone and the attack would hurt her. Also, I'm wondering if she feels ashamed of herself, if she is like, I don't know what that yeah meant. If it's like, yeah, okay, I get it, or yeah, you're right. Maybe there is something wrong with me. Maybe she is kind of having some realization right now, just like, yeah, why didn't I say that?
Yeah. Can I take a minute?
So even though she's the one crying and he is not, do not mistake that for she is hurting and he is not. It is often a gender thing, but not always, that men will come across this way when they're hurt. We are taught when we are hurting, we need to cover it up. I remember when I was in the 2nd grade, I had a best friend, Greg, who never cried when he was hurt. We played a lot of sports together, a lot of soccer. We also played a lot, at recess and whatnot. And I remember in the second grade deeply respecting him because he would fall and hurt and break things, and he would never cry. He would never have a reaction, and I did. And I didn't like that about myself because I already had learned that I was weak because I would express my pain and he was not. In fact, there are two moments, well, really three moments that I distinctly remember when I was in the second grade. One was he had a tumble on the soccer field and didn't have a reaction. I was just like, whoa. But then another time, I was a pretty big kid and he was more on the smaller side. And we were doing this calisthenic or this conditioning exercise during soccer practice, and he was on my back. And I was carrying him from one side of the field to the other. And I tripped and fell, and his chin hit the ground hard, and his chin just split open, and you could see his bone and whatnot. And he didn't cry, even though he knew like it was bad and there was a lot of blood. And I just thought like, oh my God, I felt terrible. It was all my fault because it was. And I was super impressed with that. But then this other time we were going down a hill on a skateboard, and we were both on the skateboard on our, sitting on the skateboard, and I was on the back and he was on the front. It was a long hill, and I don't know what we were thinking because at the bottom of the hill is just a ditch that goes into the woods. So, we hadn't planned on how we were going to stop, but we got moving down this hill, and I bailed. I just jumped off because I'm just like, wait, how are we going to stop? And I didn't learn my lesson. I did this another time, and I actually at a different hill with a different friend, and I still have a scar on my ankle because it like scraped across the asphalt and just took off the skin. I can still see the scar. But anyway, this time I didn't terribly injure myself, and he tried to stop by putting his hands down on, ungloved hands down on the asphalt, and he ran over his hand, and it really just, everything got chewed up like really bad. And he cried that time, and he had like rocks like embedded in both sides of his hand, and his mom was trying to pull it out in the bathroom. This is, it's the 70s. You didn't go to the ER ever. I don't even know where the hospital was in relation to my house. You just sort of washed it off and said, you'll be okay. Because I'm just thinking like, why didn't we go to the hospital? We just didn't do that back then. Anyway, so he did go to the hospital for the chin because he needed stitches. But anyway, I remember being like, whoa, he's crying. So my point is that I'm guessing for Matt, he had a similar upbringing regarding toxic masculinity. This is there are wonderful things about masculinity, or neutral things, and there are terrible things, and this is one of the terrible things, the toxic things. And he could be suffering even more than her right now, but because of that learning and that, indoctrination into gender associations of personality and what it means to have emotion and what it means to cry, the way that he exhibits it is through anger and putting up walls and acting like he is above it all, like he doesn't care, like he's not affected by it. Not only to exhibit to her, like I'm not going to give her the satisfaction, but also maybe to try to convince himself that I don't need anyone and everything's going to be fine, when he could be, if he were to act spontaneously and normally, he would be bawling and bawling and bawling. And the sooner all of us, maybe you included, can get to that place of spontaneous emotional expression, the more healthy everyone will be, because he would be able to be himself and be able to process his emotions normally, because there's a chance that if things go according to how things are going, he'll never be able to process his feelings. He might not have ever processed his feelings about being cheated on in the past or whatever happened in the past for him. So that's the first benefit. But the second benefit is that she will be able to see his pain. This is critical for you people out there, and maybe you men out there. If he were to cry right now, she would have a very different impression and narrative about what's happening, because the way that he's treating her right now, it feels like he doesn't love her, he doesn't care about her, he's judging her. He is shaming her. He's looking down on her. He thinks she's stupid and frivolous and, I don't know, slutty or something. And he doesn't care. He's just like, I don't care. Look at you doing that thing. And look, you're an awful human. I hate you. That's the impression, right? But that isn't really what's happening. What's really happening is that he is terrified of being hurt. And he is scared and he is in pain. If he were to exhibit that fear and that hurt by crying, and I've worked with many men on this, by the way, but women are prone to this absolutely as well. But for whatever reason, I've worked with a lot of dudes on this, and it's hard. I'll work with them for years, honestly. But when we start going down that road, the benefits just start rolling in, and on a whole number of levels. So if he were to cry, she would still maybe feel bad. She would still maybe feel like she's being judged, but she would say, oh, he doesn't hate me. He's hurt by me. So I can tend to that hurt, because what she's receiving right now, the only thing she can really do, because she can't undo what she did. So she just has to walk away and feel ashamed of herself. There's no avenue. She's trying to appease him in her way, which is limited, but she's trying, she's talking and looking eye contact and doing her best. But if he were to cry, then that would give her a direction to go in, and it would engage her empathy. And she'd be, oh my God, I'm so sorry, because I'm guessing that's what he wants to hear. You're right. I shouldn't have done that. I don't want to be with him. I want to be with you. I could see how that would hurt you or something. But if you don't exhibit that pain, you might not know it's there if you're Colleen. Now, another thing, if you're in the position of Colleen, is when you see behavior like Matt's, is to read between the lines and know that that your partner is either in pain and or afraid of something, afraid of losing you, afraid of rejection, and hurt that they feel rejected, essentially. So if you can see that, then you can go towards that, and maybe that'll help bring it out in them, depending. Yeah. And so when people go down that road where they can slowly over time be vulnerable, one, they have to access those feelings, which can take a long time, and then exhibit them spontaneously is something way down the line. There's sort of an interim step where my clients will be able to voice it. They'll say like, so that really hurt me. But they're not crying and they're not really exhibiting the physicality of the pain, but they're able to communicate it with words, which is great. But eventually you just want to get to a place where when you're hurt, like you just start crying, like the tear. There's a reason why we evolved to have water and snot come flying out of our face, and for our breath to get, and it's very obvious when someone is crying, right? You can hear it, even different steps of crying. Like when someone's just kind of crying, you see the redness of the eyes and the little bit of the shakiness of the voice, and the pitch of your voice might go up, this kind of thing. There's a reason why we evolved that. We clearly evolved it because children will exhibit this behavior as soon as they come out of the womb. They weren't taught it, right? This isn't socialized. This is an instinct that we have. And the reason why we have it is because it signals to other people our emotional state. We depend on other people, and we depend on people helping us. And the only way that people will know to help us is if we show that we are suffering. And the way that we show it is through physical means, right? When we're angry, we go, and we clench our fists. And when we're happy and when we laugh and we smile, like it's automatic. Infants will do it within days of their ability to open their eyes. They start making those faces, right? So we need to get in contact with that so that we can signal to other people accurately to engage their empathy and to have them come at us in a direction that actually meets our needs. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.